The rain was falling slowly that night. The small apartment was silent, only the sound of drops hitting the window filled the air. In the corner of the room sat a man, his shoulders heavy, his eyes staring at nothing. His name was Armin. His hands held a photo frame. The glass was cracked, but the picture inside was still clear, a young woman smiling with eyes full of life. Armin did not move for a long time. His chest rose and fell with slow breaths, but his mind was far away. He remembered laughter, soft voices, and the warmth that once filled this very room. But those days were gone. She was gone. He whispered, almost to himself. Never again. I will never let anyone come close. I will stay alone. Forever. The words were not new. He had repeated them for years. It was his vow, his shield. Pain had burned him so deeply that he believed no light could ever touch his life again. The clock ticked loudly in the empty room. Midnight passed, but Armin remained still, his eyes locked on the photo. Finally, he stood up, placed the frame face down on the shelf, and closed his eyes. No one, he said, will enter my heart again. The next morning, life outside was bright, but Armin carried darkness inside. He followed the same routine every day. He walked to work, kept his head down, avoided small talk, and returned home quietly. His colleagues called him polite but distant. Some whispered, "He is strange. Always alone." But no one knew the reason. Armin wanted it that way. People were dangerous. Attachments were dangerous. When you love, you give someone the power to destroy you. And he had already been destroyed once. At lunch break, he sat at the far end of the cafeteria. Others laughed in groups, but he ate silently, staring at his food. He did not hate people, but he did not trust them. Whenever someone tried to make friendly conversation, he answered with short words, enough to end the talk quickly. "Why don't you ever join us, Armin?" one coworker asked one day. He forced a small smile. "I like being alone." They laughed lightly and left him alone. But deep inside, he felt the weight of those words. He liked being alone, or maybe he had just convinced himself to like it. That night, the rain returned. Armin sat near the window, the city lights blurred through the glass. He picked up a book, but the words made no sense. Memories came back, stronger this time. He saw her face again. He heard her laughter echoing. And then the memory of that final day crashed into him, the day when fate stole her away. His hands trembled. He put the book down and covered his face. "Why?" he whispered. His chest ached as if the wound had never healed. Silence answered him. Armin stood and looked in the mirror. His own tired eyes stared back. "You promised," he reminded himself, voice low and rough. "You promised to never let anyone in." He nodded at his reflection, as if sealing the vow again. Days turned into weeks, and the same routine followed. Work. Silence. Return. Loneliness was his companion, and he thought he had accepted it. But sometimes, in the middle of the night, his heart betrayed him. It whispered that maybe he was not meant to live this way. Maybe the human soul was never created to stay completely alone. He pushed the thought away each time. Hope was dangerous. Hope opened doors, and behind those doors waited pain. He could not survive another loss. One Sunday evening, he walked through the park. Families laughed, children played, couples held hands. Armin walked past them all with empty eyes. He avoided looking too closely at their smiles. It reminded him of what he had lost. A small boy ran past him chasing a red ball. The ball rolled near Armin's feet. The boy looked up with bright eyes and said, "Can you pass it, uncle?" For a moment, Armin froze. The innocence in the boy's voice cut through his wall. Slowly, he bent, picked up the ball, and handed it over. The boy smiled wide and said, "Thank you," before running off. Armin stood still. Something in that small smile shook him. He turned away quickly, walking faster, reminding himself, "No, don't feel. Don't open the door." That night, he wrote in his journal, something he rarely did. I saw a smile today. It felt like a memory. But I will not break my vow. I will not let destiny fool me again. I am safer alone. He closed the journal hard, placed it in the drawer, and locked it. As he lay in bed, the rain started again outside. The sound filled the silence, but this time, instead of peace, it felt like a warning. A thought entered his mind, soft but clear. What if destiny does not care about promises? Armin shook his head, but his heart refused to rest. He closed his eyes, unaware that the wheels of fate had already begun to turn. The sun was shining bright the next morning, but Armin carried the same shadow inside his heart. He walked through the city park, his steps steady, his eyes fixed on the ground. He never looked around. Looking meant noticing life, and noticing life meant remembering what he had lost. But destiny does not knock on the door, it breaks it open. As Armin walked near the fountain, something sudden happened. A young woman, rushing with a stack of books in her hands, slipped on the wet stone floor. The books flew in every direction, pages fluttering in the air like broken wings. One of the books slid right to Armin's feet. For a moment, he stood frozen. He did not want to get involved. But his hand moved on its own. He bent down, picked up the book, and looked toward her. She was on her knees, gathering her things quickly, her hair falling forward, hiding half her face. When she looked up, their eyes met. Her eyes were bright, full of life, the exact opposite of his. She gave a small, embarrassed smile. "Thank you," she said softly. Armin hesitated. His throat felt tight. He handed her the book and turned slightly, ready to leave. But she stopped him. "Wait." Her voice was light, almost playful. "You don't just save a book and run away, do you?" Armin blinked. He was not used to this kind of energy, this sudden warmth. "It's nothing," he muttered. "Be careful next time." He turned to go, but she laughed gently. "You sound like an old man." The words caught him off guard. For the first time in years, a stranger's words pulled a small spark of irritation from him. He didn't reply. He just walked away. But something strange happened. As he walked further, he felt her gaze on his back, as if destiny itself was watching through her eyes. The next day, Armin returned to his usual routine. Work, silence, home. Yet, when he passed by the park in the evening, he saw her again. She was sitting on a bench with the same stack of books, reading with full attention. He slowed down unconsciously. But then he reminded himself of his vow. He kept walking. Still, the question chased him all the way home. Why was she there again? 2 days later, it happened once more. He went to the library to return a book. She was there, standing near the same shelf he needed. "Oh," she said, surprised. "It's you again." Armin almost turned back. "I just came to return this." But she tilted her head with a smile. "You're not very talkative, are you?" He stayed silent, placing the book on the counter. "All right," she said, still smiling. "Then I'll do the talking." Her words were light, but they carried something deeper. Something that stirred a small storm inside Armin. He wanted to ask her name, but he stopped himself. Promises were chains, and he was not ready to break them. That night, back in his apartment, he sat with his journal again. His hand moved slowly across the paper. "I saw her again. The girl with the books. Why does she keep crossing my path? It feels strange, almost like destiny is pushing her into my world. But I cannot let her in. I will not." He shut the journal hard, almost angry at himself for writing it. But even as he tried to sleep, her face appeared in his mind. The way her eyes lit up when she smiled, the way she laughed at him calling him old, it haunted him. Not like his past, which hurt him, but like something alive, something dangerous. The days moved forward, but Armin's thoughts did not. Ever since the night of rain, he kept remembering the moment at the bus stop, the two of them standing under one umbrella. He had not wanted it, yet he had not walked away. Her smile, her eyes, her voice, They kept returning to his mind like waves hitting the shore. He tried to fight it. He repeated his vow again and again. I will stay alone. I will not let anyone in. But destiny had other plans. The next week, Armin went to a small cafe near his office. He never liked crowded places, but that day he needed a cup of coffee to escape the rain. He sat in the corner, quiet as always. And then, there she was. The same girl, walking in with her books, raindrops still in her hair. She looked around and her eyes fell on him. Her face lit up instantly. You again, she said with a laugh as if the world itself was playing a game with them. Armin almost choked on his coffee. He looked away quickly. This city has many places, he said in a low voice. Why always here? Maybe it's not the city, she replied softly. Maybe it's something else. Her words sank into his chest like a quiet storm. She ordered tea and sat across from him without asking for permission. Armin wanted to protest, but his voice refused to come out. For years, he had built tall walls around himself. But now, without warning, someone was climbing them. I don't think we've introduced ourselves, she said, her tone light. I'm Sarah. Armin hesitated before answering. Armin. She smiled. Nice to finally know your name. He tried to keep his eyes on his coffee, but curiosity won. Why do you carry so many books all the time? Sarah's smile widened. Because books never leave you. People, sometimes they do. But books stay. Armin froze at her words. Something inside him shifted. He felt as if she had unknowingly touched his deepest wound. Days passed, and their meetings continued. Sometimes in the park, sometimes in the library, sometimes on the street. Each time, Sarah's presence broke a little piece of Armin's silence. One afternoon, she found him sitting alone on a bench. You always sit like the world is too heavy for you, she said gently. Armin looked at her, almost defensive. Maybe it is. Then why carry it alone? She asked. You know, sometimes sharing doesn't make the pain bigger. It makes it lighter. Her words hit him like lightning. 4 years, no one had dared to ask him such a question. He wanted to tell her to stop, to leave him alone. But instead, he stayed silent. That night, Armin sat at his desk, staring at his journal. His hand shook as he wrote. She doesn't understand. Or maybe she does. Every word she speaks feels like it is meant for me. I promised myself to never open these doors again. But why do I feel that my promise is breaking piece by piece? He slammed the journal shut and pressed his hands to his face. No, he whispered. I cannot. I must not. But deep inside, he already knew the truth. His walls were falling, and he was powerless to stop them. A week later, Armin was walking near the riverside when he saw Sarah again. She was standing by the water, lost in thought. The wind blew her hair across her face. For the first time, Armin noticed something. Her eyes were not only bright, they also carried a shadow, a hidden sadness. He walked closer without realizing. You're quiet today, he said softly. She looked at him, startled, then smiled faintly. Even the happiest people have quiet days. There was silence between them. For the first time, it did not feel heavy. It felt shared. Sarah turned to him. Why do I see you everywhere, Armin? She asked suddenly. His heart raced. He wanted to say it was chance, coincidence, nothing more. But the words that came out were different. Maybe destiny doesn't want me to hide anymore. As soon as he said it, his chest tightened. He had spoken against his own vow. Sarah's eyes softened. Then maybe, you shouldn't. That night, Armin could not sleep. He lay awake, staring at the ceiling, her words echoing in his mind. He had spent years building walls, years protecting himself from love, from loss, from pain. And now, a single girl with a gentle smile was breaking those walls without even trying. He wanted to run. He wanted to stay. Both feelings pulled him apart. In the darkness, he whispered to himself, "What if she's the one thing I can't run from?" The rain started again outside his window, soft and endless. Armin closed his eyes, but his heart was no longer quiet. The vow he once swore so strongly was beginning to crumble, and he knew it. The city was quiet that evening. Armin walked slowly through the empty streets, his hands in his pockets, his mind heavy. He had spent weeks fighting against the changes inside him, but Sarah's presence kept breaking his walls. Every smile of hers, every gentle word, pushed him further away from the vow he had once believed unshakable. But there was something else he noticed now. Behind her bright smile, behind her cheerful tone, Sarah carried something she never spoke about. Her eyes sometimes grew distant, as if she was watching a memory she did not want to share. Armin could not stop thinking about it. One night, they sat together at the park bench where their paths had crossed many times. The moonlight touched the water, and the wind was soft around them. For once, Sarah was quiet. "You're not yourself today," Armin said, breaking the silence. Sarah turned her head toward him, forcing a faint smile. "Even the strongest people get tired sometimes." Armin studied her face. "You always talk like everything is easy. But it's not, is it?" Her smile faded. Her hands trembled slightly as she clutched her book. Finally, she whispered, "You're right. It's not." Armin felt something tighten in his chest. He wanted to ask, but he stayed silent, waiting. Sarah's eyes shone in the moonlight, but this time they were wet with tears. "You think you're the only one who has promised to stay alone? You think you're the only one who carries pain?" Her voice broke, and she covered her face with her hands. Armin froze. He had never seen her like this. For weeks, she had been the light pulling him out of the dark. But now, he realized, she carried her own shadows. After a long silence, she spoke again, her voice trembling. "I had someone too, someone I thought I would spend my life with. But destiny took him away from me. A road accident. One moment he was there, the next moment, gone." Armin's heart sank. He understood every word, every tear. It was the same pain, the same loss, reflected in another soul. Sarah continued, "I smiled to survive. I laughed to hide. But inside, I was broken. Just like you." The air between them grew heavy. For the first time, Armin did not feel alone in his grief. He wanted to speak, to tell her about his own story, about the picture frame he still kept in his apartment, about the nights when rain carried him back to the past. But the words stuck in his throat. Instead, he said softly, "You don't have to hide it from me." Sarah looked at him, her eyes searching his face. For a moment, it felt like two walls had cracked at the same time, allowing light to pass between them. The following days were different. Sarah no longer tried to hide her silences, and Armin no longer avoided her presence. Sometimes they talked about books, sometimes about the weather, but sometimes they sat in silence, two broken souls, side by side. One evening, while they walked by the riverside, Sarah stopped suddenly. "Do you know why I kept meeting you?" she asked. Armin shook his head. "Because every time I saw you, I saw myself. The way you walked alone, the way you avoided people. It was me. And I thought, maybe if I could reach you, I could save both of us." Her honesty cut through him. He felt the same, but he was still afraid. "You don't understand," Armin said, his voice low. "I made a vow to never let anyone in again. Because when love leaves, it destroys everything." Sarah looked at him firmly. "But what if love doesn't leave this time? What if destiny brought us together not to break us, but to heal us?" Armin's breath caught. Her words were like fire against the ice in his heart. But fear pulled him back. He turned away, staring at the water. "I don't know if I can risk it," he whispered. Sarah stepped closer, her voice calm but strong. "Then let me carry some of your fear. You don't have to fight alone anymore." That night, Armin lay awake, her words echoing in his mind. He could see her tears, hear her confession, feel the truth in her voice. For the first time, his vow did not feel like strength, it felt like chains. He opened his journal, his hands shaking as he wrote. She is broken too. And yet, she chooses to fight. She chooses to smile. I am not alone anymore, but why does that scare me even more than loneliness? He closed the journal and pressed it to his chest. The rain began to fall outside, steady and endless, as if reminding him, promises can be broken, but destiny cannot. Armin knew one thing for certain. He and Sarah were tied by pain. But what if that pain could also tie them to hope? For the first time in years, he did not know the answer. The night was heavy with silence. Armin sat alone in his apartment, staring at the photo frame he had once turned face down on the shelf. He picked it up now, his fingers brushing against the cracked glass. The smiling face inside looked back at him, full of warmth and love that once made his world complete. 4 years, this picture had been his anchor. It reminded him of the vow he made, the vow to never let anyone close again. But now, another face had entered his heart. Another smile haunted him, one that belonged to Sarah. He placed the frame gently on the table and whispered, "What am I supposed to do?" All day he had avoided her. He did not answer her calls, did not reply to her messages. His heart wanted to run to her, but his fear held him back. Every time he thought of Sarah's tears and her broken story, he felt closer to her. Yet every time he remembered his own pain, he pulled away. In the evening, the rain began again. He stood at the window, watching the drops blur the city lights. "I cannot give her hope," he told himself. "I cannot risk breaking her the way I was broken." But then he remembered her words, "What if destiny brought us together not to break us, but to heal us?" The memory made his chest tighten. He turned away from the window, unable to escape the battle inside him. The next day, fate pushed harder. Armin saw Sarah at the park, standing under the old oak tree. She looked tired, her usual brightness dim. When her eyes met his, she smiled weakly, as if hiding her pain again. "Why are you avoiding me?" she asked softly. Armin looked away. "Because this, whatever this is, it cannot work." "Why not?" Her voice shook. "Because you made a promise to your pain? Because you are too afraid to live again." Her words hit him like stones. He clenched his fists. "You don't understand. I already lost everything once. I cannot go through it again. If I let you in and lose you too, I will not survive it." Sarah's eyes filled with tears, but her voice remained steady. "And if you don't let me in, you will die slowly, every single day. Which is worse, Armin? To risk losing love, or to live without it at all?" The silence that followed was sharp. Armin's breath grew heavy. His vow screamed inside him, but his heart whispered a different truth. That night, Armin returned home and opened his journal. He wrote furiously, his hand trembling. "She is asking me to choose. My vow or my heart. Fear or hope. Darkness or light. I promise to stay alone, but maybe the promise itself is what is killing me. Maybe Sarah is not here to hurt me. Maybe she is here to remind me that life can still be lived." Tears blurred the page. He closed the journal and placed it beside the old photo frame. His heart was torn between past and future, between death and life. The following evening, Sarah waited at the riverside where they had once spoken. She stood still, watching the water flow, her eyes heavy with unshed tears. She did not know if Armin would come. And then, footsteps. She turned, and there he was, walking slowly toward her. His face was pale, his eyes full of struggle. "I don't know if I can be the man you need," Armin said, his voice low. "I don't know if I can fight this fear." Sarah stepped closer, her voice breaking. "I don't need you to be fearless. I just need you to be honest. I need you to try." Armin's heart pounded. His vow echoed in his mind like a chain pulling him back. Never again. Stay alone. Forever. But in front of him stood a woman who carried the same scars, who had the same pain, who asked for nothing but truth. His lips trembled as he whispered, "If I choose you, there is no turning back." Sarah's tears finally fell, but her smile shone through them. "Then don't turn back. Walk forward with me." The rain began to fall again, soft at first, then heavier. Armin stood frozen. His vow was breaking. His walls were crumbling. He had spent years hiding from destiny, but now destiny was standing right in front of him. And for the first time, he realized that maybe love was not meant to destroy. Maybe love was meant to heal. He took a deep breath, his voice barely audible. "Sarah, I think I am ready to try." Her eyes widened, filling with both shock and relief. She reached out her hand. Armin hesitated only for a second before placing his hand in hers. The rain washed over them, but under that storm, a new choice was made. That night, Armin returned home. He looked at the old photo frame one last time. With shaking hands, he placed it carefully in a box and closed it. "Thank you," he whispered to the memory. "But I must live again." For the first time in years, the silence in his apartment felt lighter. The vow that had once chained him was finally breaking. But as he closed his eyes, another question haunted him. Can two broken hearts truly heal each other, or will destiny test them again? The days after Armin's choice were strange. For years, he had lived inside walls built from pain and silence. Now, those walls had cracks. Sarah's presence filled spaces he thought would stay empty forever. Sometimes, he smiled when she laughed. Sometimes, he felt warmth when her hand brushed against his. But deep inside, the fear never fully left. "What if destiny punishes me for this?" he asked himself again and again. He had broken his vow, and part of him still believed that fate was waiting to take everything away again. One evening, they walked together along the riverside. The same river where he had once rejected her. The air was cool, the sky painted in shades of gold and red. Sarah stopped and looked at him with soft eyes. "You're quiet again," she said. "I'm thinking," Armin replied. "About us." He nodded. "I still wonder if I deserve this. If I deserve you." Sarah's eyes glistened. "Armin, we're both broken. But maybe broken pieces can fit together to make something new. Maybe we're not here to deserve love. Maybe we're here to choose it." Her words sank into him like seeds finding soil. For the first time, he felt a flicker of hope, not forced, not fragile, but real. That night, however, his fears returned. He dreamed of the past, the night he lost everything. The screams, the silence, the unbearable emptiness. He woke up drenched in sweat, shaking. And then he heard a knock on his door. He opened it to find Sarah, worried and breathless. I couldn't sleep," she admitted. "Something told me you needed me." Without a word, Armin stepped aside and let her in. They sat in silence, but it was not empty silence. Her presence was a comfort, her eyes steady, her hand resting close enough for him to hold. Slowly, he placed his trembling fingers over hers. "I don't want to lose you," he whispered. "Then don't," she said, her voice firm but gentle. "Don't lose me to fear. Don't lose me to silence. Choose me every day, no matter how hard it gets." Her words struck him like lightning. In that moment, he understood. Destiny was not an enemy waiting to strike. Destiny was a path, but the steps were his to choose. The next week, life tested them again. Sarah received news that her past was trying to catch her. Someone who once hurt her had returned, bringing back the shadows she thought she had escaped. When she told Armin, her hands shook. "Maybe I was wrong," she said with tears in her eyes. "Maybe pain never lets us go." For a second, Armin felt his old fear rise again. But then, something inside him shifted. He remembered his vow to stay alone forever, and how empty it had made him. He remembered Sarah's words about choosing love. And for the first time, he did not want to run. He took her hands firmly and said, "No. We face this together. Pain does not get to decide our future. We do." Sarah looked at him, stunned. It was the first time she saw not just his brokenness, but his strength. Days passed, and slowly, the storm faded. With Armin by her side, Sarah confronted her past, not as a victim but as someone who had found courage again. And in helping her, Armin found his own healing too. The scars were still there. The fear was still there. But something new had grown stronger than both. Hope. One evening, under the same oak tree where they had first faced their pain, Armin stood quietly with Sarah. The moonlight fell across the river, silver and calm. "I have something to say," Armin began, his voice steady. "Years ago, I made a vow to never let anyone close again. I thought that was the only way to survive. But I was wrong." Sarah's eyes filled with tears, her lips trembling. Armin continued, "The truth is, the vow kept me alive, but it never let me live. You, Sarah, you gave me the courage to break it. You showed me that love is not about never losing. It's about never running away." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. Her breath caught as he opened it to reveal a simple silver ring. "I don't know what destiny has planned for us," he said, his voice breaking. "But I know this: I choose you. Today, tomorrow, always. If destiny tests us again, we will face it together. Will you walk this path with me?" Tears streamed down her face, but her smile was brighter than the moonlight. "Yes, Armin. 1,000 times yes." He slipped the ring on her finger, his hands trembling. And as they embraced under the night sky, the old vow finally shattered, replaced by a new one, born not of fear, but of love. For the first time in years, Armin's heart was free. The lonely vow that once chained him had given way to a promise of hope. Destiny had asked its question. And together, they had answered.